Hi, my name is Trevor. I'm accompanied by my beautiful wife.
I'm Christian.
And this is Living on the Vine podcast, a place where we share what it's like to walk out the things that God has ordered for us and to apply biblical principle to everyday life and to share what it looks like. This is our first podcast, and today we'll be talking about subconscious ministry and you are not the same. We'll be reading out of Ephesians 4, specifically for 20 through 24. Um, and it says here, um, but that is not how you came to know Christ, assuming you heard about him and were taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, to take off your former way of life, the old self, that is corrupted by deceitful desires, to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to be put on, and to put on the new self, the one created according to God's likeness in righteousness and purity of the truth. Um, Kind of the image that I got when I read this, because it actually took me a while to like kind of connect the dots, but God had kind of given me a download, and it was like basically He's giving us a new identity, and it's that's what it's saying here is that He's giving us a new identity, and there's a couple things that come with that, and one of the implied things that's not said is that you have to rid yourself of the old identity before you put on the new identity. So one of the things that I wrote here is God has granted us a new identity. He has handed it over like new clothes, asked us to put it on and come out new for all to see. What isn't said but is implied is that we must remove our old clothes or identity before wearing the new ones. If we wear our old clothes, or as it was, our new clothes over our old clothes, they would not fit or look the way that the designer or God had intended. This would create confusion or a false message to those who are not yet believers. Your audience isn't just the intended recipient. All right, I'll stop there because it's quite lengthy, but and we can kind of break it down from here. But at the end there, I had said that your audience isn't just the intended recipient, and that's actually something that I gathered tonight while I was waiting for you to actually get ready. Um, and what I where I got that from is basically where I said um, that we must remove our old clothes and that we could cause confusion, and that comes from if we wear our blessing improperly or the new clothes or the new identity that God has given us improperly, it it's going to create that confusion or that false message, right? And then I'm going to talk later more about um, how that false message could either create a new believer or fortify unbelief in someone that we were supposed to plant a seed. Let's see here. What did you have on that?
Um, just like you said, with it'll create like an unbeliever. It could, if you wear the clothes and you over your old clothes, like you're sending out the wrong message to people. There because you're basically doing two different things at one time.
Mhm.
Like you're still acting as if your old self, and you're also kind of adding your new self into it. I don't think that that mix very well because you're still going to be having the same friends, and they're going to look at you like, oh, well, you think you're this and you're that, but you're still here with us. And then you have the people that are on your walk with you. Maybe they are correcting you. And then sometimes you have those people that kind of just turn their eyes and not even saying anything. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of like we talked about earlier is just like being connected is imperative to the new walk. So this can go so many different ways, and honestly with the way that the holiday seasons have been recently, like we had the Halloween, and that's like one of the biggest, I think, backsliding moments for casual Christians, because casual
Yeah.
Christians will become casualties.
Hmm.
um and so what I'm saying with that, and we're on agreement with this, we talked about it a bunch of times, is people are so Jesus, 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 and then Halloween comes around and they're like, it's just a simple holiday, it's just playful, but the thing is we're supposed to leave no room for the devil
Right.
in the things that we do. And that right there is that's us putting on our new clothes over top of the old ones right there, is
Mhm.
is us just saying that, oh, it's just this holiday, it's not that big of a deal. But there's no in between. It's either you are with God or you're against God.
Right.
And I think honestly um, that is a that is imagery of you basically holding hands with God and holding hands with the devil as you walk between both of them. You can't straddle the fence. You have to either pick one or the other. And for you to say that, it's just a holiday, you are refusing to deny your flesh,
Mhm.
and instead of taking up your cross on that.
Yeah, and I think that if you do have friends around you that are on the walk with you and they're not saying anything, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because you can't just treat it as, "Oh, well, it's just this, it's just that." Like, no, like, this serious. We
Yeah.
can't leave any room to play.
Yeah. I think honestly, a lot of people, they decriminalize um the things of this world. Like God says, like you can't be lovers of this world, and they like to water it down to a level that is acceptable. And I think that I like to connect with a lot is basically all of America are Christians.
Mhm.
Um, if I would have to identify with one religion, it would be Christianity, but I'm not following a religion, and you're not either. I mean, we've talked about this a lot, is we're following a relationship. Our relationship is seated in Jesus Christ. Um, but everybody, they like to water it down so it fits. It's still kind of Christian, it's still, no, it's not, it's demonic, say for what
Yeah.
it is. And people, they're not ready to um they're not ready to swallow the truth. And it's hurtful to say, like, hey, that's wrong. And you were kind of going at it as far as what would your friends think about it, or how they judge you. But
Mhm.
you know we're not called to judge, but we're called to help keep each other accountable.
Mhm.
And a lot of people get offended with accountability.
Yeah, they do.
um I think we could further it with it was oh man, what was the verse? I was just talking about it earlier. It starts with a P. Not Philippians.
Proverbs?
Yes, it was Proverbs 12:16, I believe, and it's saying um, that basically, if you're easily offended, then you are a fool. And I think people, especially if we're talking about setting an example for a Christian to either create or to destruct, I think it's super important for Christians to set the example of, don't get easily offended when somebody is trying to keep you accountable, trying to keep you on your walk. I think that's actually a great um, display of love and affection towards our brothers and sisters. Is that I don't want to see you go down that road.
Yeah.
I don't want to see, like, I know who you were before, and I love you for that. I mean, I appreciate how far you've come, but please don't go back there. This is me pleading with you.
Mhm.
Please don't go back to that. And I'm gonna make sure that I didn't co-sign with what you're saying is normal. That the rest of the world is telling you that, oh, that's normal. Yeah, it's normal for the flesh, but we're not the same as these people. And that kind of goes with the message, right?
Yeah.
You are not the same as these people, like God said in the Bible. um because I've picked you out, or the world hates you just as it's hated me, because I picked you out of the world. You are in the world, but you are not of this world. All right, that is proof that God says that we are set apart. We are um we are a different category. But you can't live as if um you are not God's chosen one.
And
You have
being
to,
yeah, being lukewarm.
yes, that lukewarm, like he says, like I spit you out of my mouth like lightning.
Mhm.
Either if you're either hot or cold, I'd rather you be cold, because if you are lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think a lot of people, I think so many people in America have actually made made Christianity cute, where it's like, oh my gosh, look at my family. We love God and we go to church on Sundays, and then we put our church clothes away until next Sunday.
Mhm.
But this is so much more than a one day discipleship with God. This is so much more than a one day encounter, a one day meeting. We literally have to deny our flesh, give up our old self, and put on these new clothes, right? Become completely purified by God.
I agree. I do. Because we're going to go through challenges all throughout the week. And you can't just focus on that one day and just pray and cry out on one day and expect for the rest of your week to just be fantastic. Like, it's not going to work that way. Like,
Hmm.
you have to do like pray every day. You need to seek God. You have to have that relationship with him. That's the main thing that we need to have, is a relationship, because if we don't, then he's going to say,
Hmm.
depart from me, I never knew you,
Oh
because you
man,
didn't
I'm
know
so scared of
me.
that.
So you have to have your one-on-one relationship with him, and you have to seek him, because he, like, you will not find him unless you seek him. So
Yeah, of course. And um, man, I think there's a fine line between if we're going back towards this, but there's a fine line between judging people and accountability.
mhm.
Um, and oh man, let me wait. I'm gonna wait to hit that point. I think I'll continue on here. Um, just picking up with like kind of some of the stuff that I wrote.
Okay.
But it said here, though our physical outward appearance is not important, the way that we carry ourselves will one day, or will do one of two things, which is create new believers or um, fortify disbelief. Um, let's see here, by the display of the new fruits that God has given us to put on, or reassure unbelief currently held by those God intended for us to plant proper seeds in with the new fruits that we have improperly worn or displayed. Okay, so what? What's the, like, what am I saying with this is stop talking about your past as if you haven't been healed from it. um, that's like wearing the new clothes that God has given you over top of the old ones that He wanted you to replace. God
Mhm.
has taken those clothes from you. He's thrown them into the fire, and He's given you a new self. And so many people identify with their hurt, with their depression, with their anxiety, with the things that have happened to them, that they forget to identify in Christ, which will completely wipe all of those things.
Mhm.
Um, like like I said, God intended for us to replace those clothes, not put them in the drawer and hold on to them for later. Those things aren't supposed to come back. Those things are supposed to be thrown away. And I think that goes down to one of my like root like favorite things about, I think, my walk, or just about the Bible, is just that we're saved through God's grace. We are saved by grace through our faith alone.
Mhm.
And really, for us to harbor those clothes or to throw them in the drawer for a later time is proof that we have lack of faith that God is going to permanently heal us from those things. And I
Mhm.
think that mindset is going to put you in a position where there is room for the devil.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's like the where the mind games come into play. Um, Even through my walk, like, that was something that I struggled with in the beginning.
Hmm.
Just going back to the past and just with thoughts and things like that. But you really have to let all of that go, because God already forgave you for those things, like you said. So yeah, you have to start praying and ask God to just renew your mind.
Hmm.
That'll be like the easiest thing to do.
I think it's awesome that you brought that up, and if you're ready to share about some of that stuff, maybe not even in specifics, but just if we're just talking about healing in general, because I know that like through our marriage, you've done quite a bit of healing, whether it was past, present, type of healing. I know you had mentioned prayer, but I mean, for women that may or may not be in maybe similar situations, or how can you help them, I guess, walk through those mind games?
Um, you just have to be like consistent in prayer. And when you pray, it doesn't have to be a certain way that you pray. It doesn't have to be like there's no by the book, there's no formula to how you pray to God. Like you can literally sit down and just talk, just go in a quiet space and just talk
Hmm.
and just tell him what you need. He knows what you need, but he wants to hear you. He wants to hear
Hmm.
from you. So you have to do those things, and it's hard and it's challenging, and not everybody hears his voice on demand, or but it just takes time. You have to be very, very consistent,
Hmm.
and you will start to see the changes. I know some people probably pray like one time or two times and then just give up because they're not hearing anything or nothing's changing. But
Oh man, you're
it's
bringing up some
that
good stuff right now.
consistency that you have to have. And that's with everything. Even now, like there's sometimes where I have to be consistent
Hmm.
um, in things and just wait and be patient because we're not operating off of our time. We're operating off of God's timing.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. You got some. You definitely making my mind just like start going, because this is about to be a 3 hour podcast. Jeez. Um, I think, and this is something that God has revealed to me like relatively recently, like especially with like with our business endeavors.
Hmm.
Um, I always was like, why not now? Why not now? Like, God, I'm asking, I'm asking, I'm
What I would
asking.
say.
Yes, of course. And you'd be like, just keep praying about it. Like, it's going to be okay. But one thing that was, I think, honestly, it was more revealed to me today more than ever. But, and maybe that was because like that switch finally flipped,
Hmm.
right? Where it's like a new season in the business. But, um, God had reminded me today, He said, like, if I were to just give you what you wanted right when you wanted it, there's no proof that you're not gonna flip on me. And so really what he's trying to see is like, if he gives you the blessing, are you
Hmm.
going to forget about him? Or how long are you going to be consistent? He wants to see
Hmm.
how long you're going to be consistent with your praying and your asking and your devotion to him.
Hmm.
So that way he knows he can trust you with the blessing. Because so many people they get upset um that they don't get what they want and they stop praying like you're saying. But God couldn't trust you with the blessing. That's why he didn't give it to you. It's not that he didn't want to give it to you, but he wanted to make sure that you were mature enough to handle the blessing.
Yeah. And then also sometimes what you're asking for is not what is intended for you.
Exactly.
It might be for other people, but it's not for you. So that's another thing that I think people should also put into perspective. Like, even though you're praying for something and God has not given it to you, it's probably because you're not supposed to have it. But you still
Exactly.
need to be faithful. You still need to pray, just in general, not for a specific thing, but just pray to Him, and He will give you everything
Yes.
that you need.
I think I want to go down that road, but there's literally like we have that other episode that we're going to do that
Yeah,
is you're not ready for yes.
yeah,
And so I don't want to dive too deep into that because like that in
yeah.
of
I mean,
itself,
this topic could go like
yeah.
far, but okay, we can
Um
kind of get back on track a little bit.
yeah, no, I think that's outstanding. Um all right. And then so I'll continue. We were talking about, stop talking about your past as if like you haven't been healed from it, kind of
Mhm,
storing up the old clothes back in your closet or in your dresser for a later use, when they were meant to be disposed of.
mhm,
Um And so a couple notes that I put here was, use your past as a testimony to break others' chains. Don't allow your heart to enter back into the place your testimony came from. Um, I don't know if I should stop there and dive. I'm gonna keep going. And it said, stop talking about your past in a way that dishonors and tends to hurt or paints a bad picture of those who are involved. Doing so is proof that you still harbor unforgiveness in your heart. This equals no proven change. Um, there's been so many times in my even after like we got deep into our walk where someone would bring up specific events that I could relate to,
Mhm.
especially super deep events, and these are things that we've talked about. I think one of the biggest ones was divorce. I think
Mhm.
I have completely forgiven that whole situation. I've forgiven myself and I've forgiven the other parties involved um, from that. But there's something about the devil that when you start to talk about a situation and you intend good, you can
Mhm.
accidentally get tripped into speaking as if you're still in that situation, as if that person is still bad, as if that person still hates you, still dishonors you. And it's so easy to play victim because, like, it's a safe spot for the devil to make you feel comfortable and to, I don't know what it is about being human that we just we find so much comfort in sharing distaste for others or certain situations.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of where I got this from. As I was reading that, I was reminded of myself. As I was reading Ephesians 4, 20 through 24, I was reminded of myself when God had revealed this to me. And I was like, man, I need to be more particular with how I talk about my testimony because my testimony really could become a trap.
Right.
And I believe that maybe I was sowing discord, even if these people don't know who my ex was. It's almost sowing a certain image about that person, and so
Mhm.
now what I'm doing is I'm becoming a gossip, and God hates gossip.
Yeah.
So instead of, I guess show I guess talking about the victory, I'm talking about the failure or the pain. And that's
Mhm.
me taking my clothes back out
Right.
of the dresser and putting them back on really quick and then putting back. That's hypocritical.
Yeah.
And I think people really need to pay attention to that. And that's something that it's kind of God is definitely doing his thing right now because like I didn't have that's not written down anywhere,
Mhm.
but this is just God just downloading stuff into my mind right now, and I absolutely am thankful for it. And I pray that this definitely reaches somebody because I feel like it's supposed to right now. Um, but that is us literally holding hands with God and the devil at the same time, saying like, in this situation, I'm gonna put this on. I'm gonna identify with this so that way I can relate to somebody else, and then I'm gonna take it back off and be a Christian again. I'm gonna all right, it's Sunday. Here's my Sunday clothes. All right, now it's Monday. Here's my weekly clothes.
Mhm.
We have to have the if we're talking about Sunday clothes versus weekend clothes, we should always have Sunday clothes on.
Right.
But it shouldn't be a classification. You should just be a person that loves God, loves the world, right? And your identity should be rooted in Christ. Nothing else. Nothing temporary. It shouldn't be a temporary jump back and then come back like you're time
Mhm.
traveling, because that's deadly. That's lukewarm. That's giving backsliding. You know.
Mhm. So, what would you do now if someone asked you or was just speaking on a specific thing and instead of reacting the way that you did prior to, what would you do now?
I think I think now I would take a deep breath and I would step back. That's something that you taught me too is like patience and think about it before you say it because I used to be really impulsive. But what I would do now, I think, is I would talk about um, I would talk more about the victory that came
Mhm.
from it because at the end of that marriage there was life, right? There was a new clarity. Like look where we are.
Mhm.
Um, I guess I could talk more about the programs that helped me get through it or the people versus what they did to me.
Right.
It's not honestly, it's not important what happened to me.
Mhm.
It all that's important is what changed me. And I think that's a fine line because what happened to you versus what changed you could ultimately be the same thing.
Yeah.
just depending on how you look at it. um
How you word it.
exactly how you word it. And I think that, um man, this is God is just doing his thing. Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
Like it's so simple. And the way that you speak about things ultimately comes to pass. That is one of the gifts that God has given us.
Mhm.
But when used improperly or put in the wrong hands, it can become deadly. So I think now, to plainly answer the question, is I would more so talk about how God delivered me from that
Mhm.
versus what that person did to me. Because what they did to me is not important.
Yeah.
I think what's more important is the change that happened. I
Mhm.
think, yes, my testimony in and of itself is I went through a divorce, and then, and this is just for this, obviously this specific example, because my testimony, our testimony, is just way deeper than this, and it's not. I don't. Either way, it's way deeper than this, but because of the conversation that we're having, I'm gonna just speak on the divorce part. So, in and of itself, it doesn't matter how I got divorced. It doesn't matter what happened during my divorce. My testimony is that I was divorced,
Mhm.
right? And now the important part is, how did I change through that? What happened after that? Because of the changes that were implemented either by God or by myself.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. And then that other person can take it one or two ways. Hopefully they would take it, as okay, well, I can look at it differently.
Hmm.
Instead of just constantly just being in that dark place.
Yeah, man, I was about to say something too.
I'm sorry.
No, 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 you're good. It was because of what you were saying that I was gonna say something. So no need to be sorry. I forgot. There's so many things like God's putting in my brain right now. It's like it's absolutely outstanding. Um I'm trying to figure out where some of these notes fit into like what we were talking about, because they fit in when we were talking about it earlier.
Mhm.
So I'm just trying to make sure that I hit those points. Okay, so um I think the the bulk of this message, the bulk of what we're talking about and what we're getting at is everything that we do, everything that we say, every look that we display is a subconscious ministry that could either be destructive or creative.
Mhm.
And what I mean by destructive is it literally it can create non-belief, it could fortify disbelief, it makes people think when you minister improperly, you wear the old clothes, but you claim that you're a new clothes type of person. Is you get that same thing every time? Is that's why I'm not a Christian. That's why I don't follow God, because look at those people.
That or it's gonna create the lukewarmness, which is already a huge
Yeah, that's a
thing right
byproduct.
now. Like, exactly, because people think that this is normal, this is okay, and it's not.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like you said, you hit it right on the head. Lukewarmness is a byproduct of the ministry that you put out,
Mhm.
whether it's like good or bad, right? Um, and then that goes into like the things that you deem okay based off the
Mhm.
world standards, instead of that's you leaning on your own understanding. Let me
Yeah.
go. Let me go to this Halloween party, but I'm only dressed as Snoopy, so it's not that bad. But
Yeah.
you're still you're partaking. You're celebrating.
Mhm.
What? Why? I'm not gonna go back down that road, but
Yeah.
um. So back to like subconscious ministry. So like we can create believers too by our testimony and the way that we carry ourselves. Like by you displaying the fruits, like God says, you'll be able to tell them by their fruits. But non-believers will be able to tell you by your fruits better than believers.
Mhm.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
They'll be able to see you from a mile away. And what I mean by that is people that knew you before, that are currently non-believers, they're going to know that you are faking it or you're making
Mhm.
it,
Yep.
um, based off of how you talk, how you how quickly you are to get angry or get upset or get offended, um, they're gonna be like, "I knew you were the same."
There's no change.
Yeah, there's no change. They're gonna know that, but by how you talk. Like, for me, I think one of my biggest hurdles, and we kinda talk back and forth whether or not I'm still on that hurdle, but my biggest hurdle, I think, other than, I guess, like, the typical man, like, sexual immorality was, like, the cussing,
Mhm.
um, or, like, the mental, like, sexual stuff, right? But I think my biggest my biggest proof of change, my biggest outward proof of change, because like in my head, people couldn't really see other than God and maybe you, right?
Mhm.
Based off of how I talk and carry myself. But my biggest outward display of whether or not I was changed was my fight with cursing, saying bad words, because I used to cuss like a sailor. Um, and I think that's one of my things that I'm, for the appearance wise, I'm most proud of,
Mhm.
is because like people ask me, and it's like it feels good when people say like, why do you talk like that, or like, why do you say those things, or they're surprised that I'm not saying an F word. I think actually my favorite part is when they say, oh, I'm sorry, let me not say that around you, because
Mhm.
they know that I've changed.
Mhm.
um Especially people that are now acquaintances, that were once friends. And that's something that people will see too, is they're going to see people backsliding out of your life,
Yeah.
because of the changes that you made, because they're not comfortable with it.
Mhm.
They're comfortable living in their sin. They're not actually, their demons are, I would say. um, but I would say that that would be one of my favorite outward expressions, from people that knew me, that would indicate my changes, that I'm not, out here cursing this and cursing that.
Mhm.
And it feels good. I feel clean. So,
Yeah. I think another big thing that people have to be okay with too is the change. Like, you're going to lose a lot of people that you used to hang out with, and that's fine. So now what you need to do is go seek other people that are in the same walk with you, and people that are able to mentor you, um, and
mm, yes.
have that friendship. Like, don't worry. I'm not gonna say don't worry about the other people, but while you're getting through your new walk with God, like, you need to focus on you. And then later on, once you're more mature, that's when you can start praying more for the people in the past.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that try to go back and save other people, and you're not even able to help yourself right now. You need to wait a little bit and get yourself together
Hmm.
first, and then go back and start praying for those people. And if it's
Yeah.
meant for them to change, then they will change.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Um,
It does. It gets lonely. Like,
oh yeah,
it
we
was
could
just
speak about some
like
lonely.
it was just us,
Oh
and
my gosh.
until we found, a new church home, and then we found friends, and we were we felt whole again, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. Like, you don't have to worry about everybody else.
Yeah, I think that is, and I think you hit the nail on the head again. Um, I think that's one of I think that is one of the most biggest um, reluctancies that people that aren't walking with God, when they are trying to decide whether or not they want to walk with Him or not,
Mhm.
is, well, I don't want to give that up.
Mhm.
Or I don't, but I still want to go out and party. It's just a hookah lounge. I, I'll just like tune out the music, and I'll pray while I'm there or whatever. No,
Yeah.
you, it gets very lonely,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you're completely surrounded by God. Like, I feel so much better sitting in the house than I do, like, and I used to love like going out, partying, drinking, drugs, or whatever else
Yeah,
it
but
was, right?
the thing is, though, like, you could still have fun and still walk with God. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest
Misconception.
misconceptions that people have is, "Oh, I can't do anything anymore." Like, yeah, you
Yes.
can. It's just you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, there's a
Maybe you can't
posture.
go to the same places that you used to, but there are places that you can go
Yeah.
to and have, and even through your change, like you're not gonna want to do those things anymore anyway.
At all. Like man, I used to love, especially when you first met me, I used to love drinking.
Yeah.
Um I can't stand it now. I mean, we'll have a glass of wine, but like I'm talking about the minute, and it's like I think it's something that we share. The minute that we feel any sort of not fully grasping ourselves, like there's like that little tipsiness, like we're done.
Mhm.
Like we don't even desire that anymore. Like we don't drink to get drunk. We have a beer in the fridge that's been in there for what, like two
A
months
couple
almost three
months.
months
Yeah.
and it's not one of those things where I'm like, oh my god, I need to
I
go
would say
crack that
maybe
open.
2 years ago, you would've drank all
Yeah,
the beers in, like, that whole night.
absolutely. And now the only time, like people, it's kind of funny because people, they'll, especially if they're watching this and then like they see me at the store, they might catch me picking up a bottle of Jack Daniels, be like, ha, I got you, you're a liar. Let alone, like, little do they know I'm about to go cook with that. I that's the like I don't shoot that stuff anymore.
Mhm.
I don't even sip it. I don't mix it. I don't do mixed drinks.
Mhm.
Um I cook with Jack Daniels, specifically the honey kind, because it's got the sugary sweet taste in it. But
Mhm.
um,
I think for drinking, I think it's okay as long as you know, like, you're not, like you said, drinking to get drunk. If you have a drink, whether it's a glass of wine, whether it's like, a sip of whatever liquor, whatever you like to drink, that's fine with like food or something.
mm,
Um, but I don't think that you should be just throwing them back.
oh, I don't know, no, 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 and um, that I think that properly aligns with idolatry.
Mhm.
Um, and like even Jesus turned water to wine. Like that's like
That's the biggest thing that people
yeah,
like
that's
to
the biggest
use.
lukewarm thing that you can say. Like and the only time I would say that it's a lukewarm thing to say is when you're using it to justify your drinking problem.
Yeah.
I have confidence that I can say, well, Jesus turned water to wine, so he's not condemning drinking, but there's there's a heart posture that comes with it.
Mhm.
There's absolutely a heart posture that comes with it. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm saved now, so it's okay that I drink," and I just say sorry. No, you have a problem, and you need to be completely honest about it. I have a problem. I need to stop drinking. Let me replace that with God, not another beer. People aren't ready for that conversation though.
Yeah.
And I think
And it's not gonna happen at a snap of a fingers. It's gonna be a process, obviously.
mhm,
But definitely, like, if you feel the urge to, like, oh, I want to have a couple beers or whatever the case may be, if you are a problem, like an alcoholic or something like that, maybe pull out your Bible, start reading. Like,
yeah.
feed your body something else other than those things.
But I think too that that's when you crave something that isn't a fruit of the spirit or is more worldly than it is heavenly,
Mhm.
um, that is that's a flesh
Yeah.
instance. That's a flesh issue. So I think the first thing is to properly die from your flesh, to really just kill off the flesh. I think, and maybe I'm different, but I think some of it has to do with finances for me, and then also that I'm able to just like right now cut it off. Like if I feel like it's bad, I just like I stop it, no matter how much it hurts or how much it bothers me.
Mhm.
If I see that it's taking the place of God, um, I stop. Like there's no room for it.
Yeah, but you weren't necessarily labeled as an alcoholic, but you
Hmm.
did say that you used to curse like a sailor. So it took you
Yeah,
time,
I guess.
like over time, it was like little by little by little, and then you completely like were
Yeah,
done with it. So
I
if someone has a
suppose.
problem with specifically drinking, they're not going to be able to just cut it. They're going to have to continually seek God and pray, 'cause it's not just gonna happen like, "Oh, I'm just not gonna drink." Like, you're going to. But if they continue to seek
Mm.
God and their heart posture is good, like you were saying, then He will over time, like, dry that up for you. You're not gonna want those things anymore.
Yeah, I guess that is, I guess maybe I was a little insensitive with that. Um,
I don't think it was insensitive, it's just a struggle that you didn't necessarily have, so you viewed it differently. Um,
yeah.
but
I th
that's
I think the reason why it was, like, easy for me to cut alcohol and, like, smoking was, um, I cared more about my finances than I cared about a buzz. So, like, it was like, "Oh, $5 for tobacco? Nah, dog. I'm not spending $5 for every week on tobacco
yeah.
that," or how I don't even know how much it is anymore, but I know it's expensive. And the
Mhm.
same thing was, like, with alcohol. I've got a family to feed. Now, and I think that's another issue right there too. Not an issue, but I think another part that I'm missing, or that I didn't relate to, was that I didn't genuinely have an addiction problem,
Mhm.
um, or a deep rooted addiction problem with substance. So I guess for me to say that, oh, I have a family at home, so I'm just not going to do it because I need to put, that wouldn't apply to an alcoholic.
Right.
That wouldn't apply to a substance abuser,
Right.
um, because they're abusing the substance, which would indicate that they care about their family, but their flesh eats them more.
Mhm.
So maybe they wouldn't have that same switch that I would,
Yeah.
finances or not.
And if there's a person that is struggling with something like that, you need a good support system, like, for sure. Not
Hmm.
only, like, in your household, but also, like, mentorship
Yeah.
within the church.
I think I think that's super important because, honestly, like when we first got involved with our church, um I kind of fully anticipated it to be the same as it's always been for me, where I get in church for a little bit, everything gets cleaned up, and then we kind of like go back to just clubbing, listen to whatever music we want, X,
Mhm.
Y, and Z. But I guess this time, this go around, and maybe at a future date, we can share more about that particular testimony because that's a relatively deep one.
Mhm.
Um, this one was different.
Yeah.
Um, this one, like, took the cake. Like, this is like a never to return,
Mhm.
um, because you've seen, um, physically, you've seen where you're going.
Mhm.
Um, and I know someday we'll get to share that on here, but I don't think it's today. I don't believe that God's asking us to share that today, but um so much of my walks, because I've been on many walks, but for the majority of my life I didn't stay on the path. I
Mhm.
would walk and then I would veer off, and I would walk what seemed deep that time and I'd veer off. But never in my life have I ever been this dedicated to my walk. um I definitely had church clothes. That was it.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call. And I
Absolutely.
think that sometimes God does that for his, like, the people that he wants that are his, like, he will give you a wake-up call and there's like, "Okay, like, I have to do this," or
Hmm.
"That's it."
Yeah, I
So,
think it's like it's that final straw. Like,
yeah.
um you've used so much of your free will that
Mhm.
now it's like God's like, okay, I'm gonna actually step in this time because I have plans for you.
Mhm.
And I 100% believe that God allowed me to use my free will to a point to where I had no choice but to follow Him.
Yeah.
um and that's like that's the double-edged sword about life, is like, or about following God, is He gives you free will, and that free will can take you away from Him or it can bring you back to Him.
Yeah.
um yeah.
But just to go back to, like, the mentorship thing that I was saying, like, everybody has their own testimony.
Yeah, I guess I didn't
And
expound on that.
I mean, it still ties into it, right? Because
Mhm.
we will share our story one day and that will help someone that's going through that, that they don't have to get to that point. Um, but just to say, go back to the drinking, like, you might think like, oh, I can't do this, X, Y, and Z, but there's someone that probably already went through that or worse that
Mhm.
is there to mentor you and guide you through those things.
Yeah, I think and that's and that taps back onto the loneliness is because like some of the people that help you the most oftentimes are not main characters.
Mm,
Like a lot of times like they're here on a mission ordered by God. They complete the mission and then they go away.
mhm,
And it's not because God doesn't love you um or you're not supposed to be with that person forever, but it's more so if God said, "Hey, you've acquired a new skill. Now I need you to use it." And this time, you know, I'm not going to monitor you. I gave you your lane walker, someone that was like coaching you throughout the way, but now you know the terrain, you know this new feature, use it.
mhm,
And I can correlate this. I heard this on this recently, where it said someone had said that like I feel like I'm alone. I feel like I can't hear God, and a lot of times, and what they said was a lot of times the teacher is most quiet before the test,
mm,
and so God has taught you all these things. He's walked you through all the lesson plans, and now it's time for you to show him what you remember. And
right.
this literally goes back to like what we were talking about as far as the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and how they correlate. And knowledge is the things that God gives you, right? And
Mhm,
wisdom is what you do with them. Wisdom is like how you use them. So this definitely ties back into what we've been talking about for the majority of the time here, which is like um how you identify and how you create believers and non-believers, which um what was I saying? Um man, oh, so the wisdom part. It is unwise, right? You are not showcasing wisdom if you are claiming you're a Christian or claiming you're a follower. Not let's forget claiming you're a Christian because apparently everybody in America is a Christian.
yeah,
Um, but the more important role is claiming you're a follower of God, but you're still going out for Halloween, right? That is unwise,
mhm,
right? Because it says leave no place for the devil. And you know that God taught you that it's in his word,
mhm,
that you claim you're reading when you're on Facebook and you're quoting your scriptures, making everybody believe that you know your word and that you're actually in it, but maybe
mhm,
you're just searching it online for your mood of the day, and then you are not showcasing wisdom when you go out there because now you're inviting everything is an open door, everything's a portal to
yeah,
different things of this world, and like God says, leave no room for the devil, right? Leave no space. So, to correlate them, knowledge is the things that God teaches you, and wisdom is the way that you use the things that God has taught you.
mhm, yeah,
Oh, this actually went a lot longer than I thought it would.
really?
Yeah, I mean, like I knew that God was gonna do His thing, but I think that we definitely hit a lot of really important things, and I definitely believe that this is gonna like help somebody.
Yeah, I hope so. I do. I know, like you said, it was kind of here, there, and everywhere, but I think everything that needs to be said was said.
Yeah.
There actually could be a lot more.
Oh yeah.
I just didn't take notes, but
I gotta take notes. You know how my brain is. So.
yeah,
And then too, a lot of the things that we talked about are gonna spin off into our other topics that we talk about on our podcast.
yeah,
Um, so we want to save stuff for the viewers. We don't want to like, we don't want to give it all like give the 3 weeks worth of podcast in one podcast, and we also want to
yeah,
give them something to chew on.
yeah,
Um, we don't want to be too overwhelming. This one may have been a little bit unorganized and overwhelming, but I think God worked
yeah.
in
I do
this.
too.
I think He was moving.
Yeah, and I think if anyone has questions or whatever, they could leave it in the comments, and we can elaborate more.
Hmm.
Um, and also, we can also add scripture into there as well if
Yeah.
that needs to happen.
Okay. I think biggest takeaways from this is stop identifying as your old self.
Hmm.
Stop playing dress up. just be who God has called you to be.
Yes.
Um, Stop harboring hatred for people, um, because God said, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say because I keep expanding, but God is literally just God is doing God right now. But
So just keep going.
um, you're harboring hate for other people. So basically, not basically, what God said is like, to the degree that you measure other people, I will also measure you.
Yeah.
Not in those exact words for the people that are gonna say, "Oh, he didn't say the exact words." That's the gist of it. I can't remember the verse or the
It's okay.
exact
You're
words.
paraphrasing. That's
Yeah,
fine.
I'm paraphrasing for sure. But um, like, who are you to judge? Another verse, right? How are you going to pick the speck out of someone's eye when you've got a log in your eye?
Exactly.
Like, why are you hating them?
And we're not even supposed to hate. We're supposed to
Yeah,
love everyone.
exactly.
Love everyone.
Yeah, and he said, and the greatest of these is love, and he was talking about the fruits of the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and he mentioned love twice,
Yeah.
and he said the greatest of these is love, and if you're saying, oh, I love people, but this person, that's hypocritical, and that's casual, and that
Mm-hmm.
is lukewarm.
Yeah, we have to love everybody. And it's hard, like, don't get me wrong, that's really hard to do. But that's something that you have to pray for. And I think that that's something that you add into our prayer, like, every day is to ask God to show, um, allow us to view people the way that He views them.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think yeah, I definitely do, to see people the way that God sees them,
Mm-hmm.
because it is so easy to see through the singular lens of the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's so easy to like hate somebody based off of what they've done to you. And a lot of people, they identify with their flesh more than they identify with their demons,
Mm-hmm.
or that person's demon, because if they were to identify with God and actually be smart, see them the way that God sees them, um, they would be able to tell that that person is suffering,
Yeah.
that that person has something attached to them
Mm-hmm.
that is making them act that way, or
And you're
they're
just
not
feeding it
wise. Yeah,
with your
and
anger and going back and forth. You're feeding that.
of course, and you come into agreement with that. That's a whole nother conversation too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to dive into that right now, but coming into agreement with something is super dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're not ready. And we've firsthand seen that recently, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say just that whole situation where you come into agreement with something, and you allow it to affect your mood instead of seeing them the way that God sees them is super unwise. It's
Mm-hmm.
not showcasing the wisdom that God has given you, and it's proof that you haven't changed.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then just to say one more little thing, even in situations like that, it's not just you can easily walk away. You don't have to say anything. You can vent to someone. You don't have
Mm,
to just bottle it up. You can vent to God, obviously. But
yeah.
if you want to have that one on one, go to your person,
Hmm.
whoever that
Yeah.
person is for you. You can vent to them. Someone
But you
that
have to be
is,
careful
you have to be
because
careful.
of
It
gossip.
should be it should be someone like I go back to a mentor or someone like
How
I
do
can
I
vent
deal
to
with it
you.
versus this person's so terrible?
Yes, I can vent to you about things. And then if it still bothers me, then I'll pray about it. But you still can get things off of your chest without just harboring
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I think that's more appropriate between you and God versus you and a mentor, because there's such a fine line, and it's so easy, kind of like how we talked about, for you to like for you to harbor that hate towards somebody else, or to create that illusion that you're still in that place when you're talking to somebody else. But when you're talking with
Mhm.
God, it's you pleading out to God, and God taking that. God wants you to bring him your problems and the things that you struggle with.
Yeah.
I think going with a mentor, it should be more so, hey, how do I deal with this, versus this person's such a turd.
Yeah, I didn't mean it like
Yeah,
that.
no, I know you didn't. But I just wanted to clarify, because like we
Yeah.
know what we mean, and we
Yeah.
want our viewers to understand from our lens too.
Mhm.
Um man, what a I think that was pretty great.
Yeah, I
So
do
I know
too.
this is the second time that we've tried getting off of the podcast tonight, but um I think that that is, I think that's it for tonight.